ultimately, I've realised that I'm probably secretly a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan, although I've never really played many of the games or actually, had a Mega Drive. But I think it's the blue spikes really that does it for me. It's sort of, I suppose, a representative of the waves of the sea.
Okay, so hello everyone and welcome back to, it's been a while, but welcome back to Screen Flickers, our podcast series. By series I mean this is the second episode we've made in months.
Yes.
But intended series where we talk about video game adaptations.
That's right, we're intending to go through them chronologically, right from the very beginning. So we watched Super Mario Brothers last time, and we found it to be one of the strangest adaptations. It'll probably be the strangest one that we watch because it really has very little relation to the original game.
Yeah.
It's this week it's Double Dragon. So what I should have said last week is that if you don't actually watch the film in question, this will probably make very little sense to you.
Yeah, because I haven't actually played the Double Dragon game itself. I played Double Dragon Neon, which was like a remake stroke prestige, I guess, because it was very parody based. It was very self-aware, over the top 80s and stuff like that. And aside from that, that's kind of all I knew, and I knew the gist of the game. But so prior to watching the film today, I watched a few Let's Play videos just to kind of get my head about the kind of core based stuff of the game, to see if I can pick them up in the film. And whilst doing so, I realised that the entire film is available on YouTube to watch, not necessarily in a legal sense. So I would say do not illegally watch this film.
Yes.
I don't say that, but do watch the film however you decide
That's right.
to.
It's not difficult to get it on DVD, actually. It was quite easy for me to get it, and it was only about £3 or something like that. From you could order it online or from your local retailer.
There are many options, not just the illegal, completely free ones. So just
the old steely.
Yeah,
I'm never going to say that again. Steely.
So yeah, we'll just bear that in mind. But yeah, so I don't know a lot about the Double Dragon game, just kind of bits and pieces. But by all accounts, there isn't actually much to the game. Really, it's just kind of a side-scrolling beat 'em up, save the girl kind of thing. Which, that kind of, you wouldn't think necessarily would lend itself to a film, but here we are. In what year was it again?
1994. It's the year after Super Mario Brothers.
They came out, a different film
I
company.
Think it was 94. And we're probably going to have comments saying no, it's 93 because I put my laptop on the ground and I just can't be bothered to pick it up again. But I'm fairly certain it was 94. I have the box downstairs as well. I could even go and get it, but no, I'm good.
We're very prepared.
I stand by it. I had it on the Game Boy, so I did play it quite extensively. I got quite frustrated with it. I got to a certain level and it just wasn't very good at that. Yeah. It's in terms of gameplay, obviously it's really one of the classics, one of the earliest.
Yeah.
It's not one of the earliest examples of a side-scrolling beat 'em up, but it's kind of perfected the art, as it were.
It's probably one of the most prolific at its time.
Yeah.
Because I think one interesting aspect is that the game isn't so well known now. I think people know the name Double Dragon, but they don't necessarily know the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that, at its time, it was huge. It was like one of the most popular arcade games of any arcade. And it had multiple adaptations, most famously on the NES.
Yep.
There was a cartoon series and stuff. So I think it was quite a big franchise.
Nobody's really clamouring for Billy and Jimmy merchandise now.
It's also it's infamous for some of the translations. I think in the NES version, it's got Bimmy and Jimmy instead of Billy.
Bimmy is, of course, a classic American name.
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
It's so so they so it's a quite big franchise that just kind of disappeared by the wayside. Mario Bros was the first film, and of course that's still going on strong today. But like Double Dragon just kind of died quietly, and every now and again will resurge in some form, such as Double Dragon Neon. But apart from that, like it's just strange how such a huge franchise at the time just suddenly kind of quietly disappeared. But
I suppose not every franchise is going to be eternal. I suppose not everything. Some things are just of their time, and they're going to last for that long and then no longer. And be brought back, like you said, by in Double Dragon Neon, which is an act of sort of like deliberate nostalgia of trying to make it as 80s and as kind of neon as possible.
Yeah,
of course we should take the opportunity to plug Jonty's album Neon.
That's true, yes. I think probably by the time this comes out the Kickstarter is going to be over, because it's over in a matter of days as the time of recording. But give him money anyway, I'm sure he wouldn't say no.
Yes, just
buy an album.
Send Weeble some money for his Savlonic album Neon.
Double Dragon as a film. Like, let's put aside the game adaptation side for now, and let's just look at it as a film. Joel, what did you think of the film?
Well, obviously going in, my expectations were not high, although I was, I looked at the box and I was quite excited by the box. That sounds really weird though, doesn't it? I was excited by the box.
You were judging the book by its cover.
Yes. You've got, there were some mutant looking people on it. There's Robert Patrick looking unbelievably 80s on it, like a living Patrick Nagel painting. I mean, even though it came out in the 90s, it's very much kind of like the 80s, the way the 80s extended into the 90s, in particular that kind of California style. I wasn't sure if the actual film itself would have any sort of genuine entertainment content, or if it would be good in a kind of a cheesy, this is awful kind of way. And while the film itself is very cheesy, I found myself being genuinely entertained by it.
Likewise, I was just so surprised, because I'd heard so little about this film. Like, even Mario Brothers, like, I think people still know about it, But with this, like, it's just gone quiet, and I was really, really into the film because it was corny and cheesy, like in a completely okay way, like not enough to make it like a bad film. Because I think it's heavily panned. I think it was because at the time it was like, oh god, this is corny and cheesy. Mm-hmm. But for now, for us to look on it, it's like, great, this is corny and cheesy. Yeah. This is brilliant.
I think what comes down to it is, obviously they were clearly influenced by a lot of other films. When we were talking about Super Mario Brothers, we were talking about how one of the influences for it in the kind of the style and the kind of the way that the dialogue and the direction happened was probably Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a big pop culture reference at the time. It was very popular with the kids, and so there are a lot that the film influenced a lot of the films that came after it, and so that same kind of California sort of laid back, a bit of mysticism in there, a bit of phony mysticism meets kind of wacky humor, and sort of those kind of fight sequences, definitely very influenced by that. But then it draws on a lot of other things. It has a kind of a RoboCop kind of future satire element.
There's like mixes of like Ghostbusters, Roger Rabbit, Karate Kids.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it just seemed to be like a mishmash of so many like popular elements at the time kind of combined together, which I guess would lend itself to the cheesiness or the clichéness of the film. But to me, like it's kind of like a time capsule of sorts, and it was just fascinating to see. Like I won't lie, I was genuinely enjoying this film. I had a lot of fun with it. Like, it's all sort of lots of action set pieces and lots of like goofy laugh out loud moments, like stuff which is, I think, probably meant to be serious maybe at the time, but like in retrospect it's just goofy and laughable, and that's fine. Stuff like when the main villain comes in and like he's got his horde of lackeys behind him, and he takes his sunglasses off, but they all take their sunglasses off at the same time. There's like 5 or 6 of them all simultaneously remove their glasses. It's so funny, but like I don't think it was intended to be,
Oh,
but it
sure.
is funny, and it's fine. It's brilliant.
I get the sense that everybody was here for the paycheck, but it seems like it seems like it would have been a fun shoot. To be honest, it seems like they were having fun doing it. Robert Patrick, in particular, definitely seems like he's having fun.
Yeah, he seemed to like enjoy every villainous moment he got.
He's sort of like, he's not a high gravitas villain. I mean, he starts off doing the opening kind of introduction. He said that they really load the exposition on very heavy at the beginning.
There's a lot that they cover to like really set the world, like too much, I'd almost argue, because it's stuff like within the first 5 minutes you learn that there are these two powerful medallions. You learn that there's a kind of a dystopian state where like there's a curfew, you're not allowed out at night, it's pollution, all the cars run off like, instead of petrol they run off like rubbish that are recycled and stuff like that, and it's just
in the distant future of 2007.
It's just a lot to take in, and like every time you get a moment with the villain, he's expositioning away. Like there's a moment where he's attacked because he's distracted expositioning.
Yeah, that was great. I like that. I mean, that's it. At first, when that comes in, you start thinking, "Oh God, how heavy is this going to be in lore?" But when it comes down to it, the film doesn't take itself seriously at all. And I think that that is Robert Patrick. He's kind of, even though he doesn't have this very stentorian film, he's quite a silly villain, but it's fun. He's kind of fun with it, and everybody else, they're kind of really hamming it up.
Yeah.
But it's this kind of works.
I really enjoyed the dynamic of Billy and Jimmy. I like those two actors together. They seem like there seem to be a genuine like relationship between the two of them. Like they're riffing off each other.
Oh sure.
And one was sort of more straight and serious, and the other one was more playful. And then sort of towards the end of the film, they kind of begin to see each other's points of view, and the straight one has fun and stuff. And
there's definitely a very 90s kid feel to it, especially them say to each other, "Oh, you're ugly. Oh man, that was gnarly,"
and stuff like the way the fight sequences were. Well, you can tell they were happening. Like there were that big open sets, and they're swinging around, and they're using props, and and of course no one's obviously getting hurt because you can see the way they flail their fist, and then the person spins and then lands on the ground. It's over the top, but it's fine. It's like one of those sort of an early Jackie Chan film.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely that kind of comedy kung fu sort of martial arts with like an interesting kind of environment where there's lots of sort of fun things that they can do in the sort of settings. The settings were great. I liked the design of the futuristic city, like they sort of came up with some interesting sort of ways that it would be sort of destroyed, and they live in this old theatre.
There's some great set pieces of like the speedboat chase where you see like a flooded Hollywood, and you see all the monuments of Hollywood, but like all destroyed and underwater. There's a lot of production value in this, like huge explosions, and it's just stuff you wouldn't have, stuff that I just never would have anticipated in this film. There
was a lot more driving and more sort of boat sequences that you thought there might be, but it's like clearly all the stunts and all the production design was very well done, and there was fire and water. What am I talking about? I sound like some kind of preacher now. There was fire and water and medallions.
And it was also a very self-aware film. Like I feel like yes, it was corny, but I think they knew what they were kind of doing. I think like it was being like ironic or silly at times. It was like Alyssa Milano's character being like caught, and the villain girl says, "Now who's the boss?" And it's like, oh, you with the references.
Dear. I think in other situations I would have found that excruciating, but the film creates such an atmosphere of this kind of loose fun that you kind of let that happen. You just kind of laugh, and sometimes the lines are just so... I don't know, I like the script. I thought it was good. The story apparently was co-written by Paul Dini.
Yes, who wrote much of the Batman comics, especially, and including the Arkham Asylum games.
That's right, and created the Batman animated series, which was a huge influence on animation after that. This was I think this might have come slightly after the premiere of the Batman animated series, so it's interesting. Maybe they brought him in as a consultant or something. But I mean, obviously, this is a very different feel, this film. But clearly, they put some thought into the actual story because, like, we will get into the adaptation later. But the character of Marion is like, she's an interesting character. Yeah. She's part of this secret underground group who are trying to beat all the gangs.
She's holds her own.
She's got like this whole thing where she's hiding it from her father, so she has her own plot line, which resolves itself by the end of it. And all the characters, even a Bobo, who's like, starts out as just this generic thug character. He has this quite tragic story arc where he sort of gets mutated and then has to deal with his own hideousness and then kind of becomes sort of likable. He's kind of like Jaws.
He actually comes to save the day.
Moonraker, yeah.
So and like...
Not Jaws in the film Jaws, obviously.
That would be a very different Bond movie if one of the main villains was just a shark in a suit.
That would be brilliant, though. It's just like a shark in a big fish bowl going around.
Right, and so he who cannot adapt shall perish. A direct quote from the film. So, in terms of an adaptation, what do you think?
Well, what's interesting about this is that obviously, it takes massive liberties with, the original game is basically them. They just walk through the city and they kind of punch people as they go and go through various different environments. It depends whether you are saying, is it based on, which version of the game is it based on? Because the original game, there's just 4 levels and you go through like a forest and stuff. But in this one, there's driving sequences with like use of virtual reality, with like cameras that are sort of filming that, and then there's boat sequences, and there's sort of more elaborate.
There are riffs on arcades as a general thing because when they're driving and they're doing the car chase, a Bobo who's chasing them is using a joystick at one point to control his car.
That's right.
And it's like, they're trying to cram in video game as a theme, but not necessarily matching the actual one they're adapting.
It's game based, so it'll work. The film is influenced, I think, by the film The Warriors from the 80s, and the idea that you have these very diverse and like ridiculous gangs. You've got the Mohicans, which is that's kind of plausible, but then you've got like the schoolboy gang, and the clowns, and the gang who just sort of swing a bag over their head,
like the mailman.
The bags, the mailman. After a while, they must have just been like, let's just make up as many ludicrous gangs as
just
we
go
could.
to the costume shop and raid it for whatever you can get. They're a gang now.
I think they're called the Maniacs or something.
Right.
But although despite all this, I feel like probably the original Drubble Dragon is a Drubble is probably influenced by the film The Warriors anyway. So I think it's maybe just a case of returning to the source. What I got from this film is, even though it expanded on that, it never felt disrespectful in a weird way. Maybe if I cared more about Double Dragon, maybe if I was like a Double Dragon a connoisseur, I would be like, how dare they? Like they've clearly disrespected the incredibly well-drawn characters of Billy and Jimmy. But I think in a way they sort of took the spirit of the game, which is this idea that there was a lot of fighting and there was the main, Bobo was in there and Linda was in there with her whip, and obviously the villain wasn't in the original game, but
he was just a machine gun guy, I think, like just a guy who turns up with a machine gun, and that's it. Like...
So they had to change it, they had to, and I think they created this post-apocalyptic world. That's where Pikachu is running around in like leather and with the machine guns.
Yeah.
Has anyone done that? The Poke-apocalypse?
Oh, undoubtedly, but that sounds cool. The Poke-apocalypse.
Yeah. But they probably created this world so that they'd have like a visually striking world to set it in, but also a world where it would be realistic that the place is just completely ruled by gangs with no possible recourse.
That made so much logical sense, because like the game itself is a left to right beat 'em up. You just move through different levels, different areas, and you eventually reach the end. And so they translated that as lots of set pieces with all these gangs that are ganging up on you, and that translates well. That makes a lot of sense. Like there wasn't so much a clear A to B reason for like Billy and Jimmy to travel. Like in the game,
Bimmy.
Marion, Bimmy and Jimmy. Marion is kidnapped, and like it's like the first second of the game. She's punched in the gut, and like carried off, and you then just travel to go save her. There wasn't really any of that. Like they were just kind of trying to keep their head down for most of the film. Like I was waiting for the moment when she was going to be kind of captured and taken away, and she almost was, but then wasn't. Like
that
she
was
freed
remarkable
herself.
that they even like they you know, even your average modern day film, they'll have strong female characters, but you know, we're in big massive quotes, but then at the last minute they will still be kidnapped, and there'll be like some big excuse why they can be kidnapped, and then the person will have to rescue them. But she never really got kidnapped.
No,
did
she completely held her own. She was just a fun female character, and like that's quite shocking considering it was based on a video game where the girl was kidnapped in the first second of the game. It's like, okay, it's actually a very unfaithful adaptation in which case, but in that sense, like for the better.
No, that's right. I mean, when it comes down to it, obviously the aesthetic of the game is a big deal. This sort of punk look, this sort of street punk kind of, you know, sort of wildlife, and this film is like that taken to its logical extent. Logical extent doesn't mean anything. So everything is like mega street punk, giant haircuts, and so you could.
They still wear the pink and the blue.
Yeah, that's it. Even though, you know, large parts of it have absolutely no resemblance to the computer game, you could argue that it channels its spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, they even have the fight between Billy and Jimmy, and in a logical way that works, because in the game, when you reach Marion, when you beat all the enemies and you reach the girl, if you're playing it 2-player, you are then forced to fight each other. Or if you're playing on your own, then the other character will walk on and you have to beat them. Yeah. And the winner of that fight gets to keep the girl.
I like that. It's like they're just men. They get to them and they're like, I want to put a kiss on her face. You don't get to do.
I will kill you to get this girl, and the girl was just completely cool with that.
Oh, sure.
But so they work that into the film where Jimmy is possessed by the villain and forced to fight Billy, and Billy doesn't want to fight him but has to rescue his brother, and that works. Again, that works. Like
sure.
So it's I would say that in terms of an adaptation, it's very loose and at times completely unfaithful, but it's absolutely to the film's benefit in the way they did it.
Oh, sure. I agree. You know, this got something like 8% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, really badly.
I mean, I don't know. I've not actually read the reviews, so, you know, maybe the people have got sort of very reasoned, or it depends what you were expecting. But I went into it wanting to be entertained, and I was entertained. And damn it,
it's just a great action film, and with lots of like kung fu elements, lots of comedy,
there was loads of fighting.
Goofiness. It's just fun. It's just a fun film.
Fighting as a team, fighting individually. There was, you know, funny sequences. There was, you know, good car chase sequences, stupid futuristic stuff, lame jokes, funny production design. The guy who directed this was like his first and only feature film, because he then just went back to doing concert films. So there is a very music video feel to it, but you know, I thought it was good.
So quite wide places, and then like intense close-ups of like smoke billowing up or fire and stuff like that.
I think it's interesting.
A lot about the set. I think that falls into the production design element. The fact that there was a lot of effort put into like, not just like, not so much the characters really, but just the things around them, like like the graffitied walls, or like the little secret HQ that they have. You know, it just looks like this little fun factory they got. So
sure. And I mean, I think it's interesting. I guess this falls into the genre of they created spaces that they thought teens, you know, would actually look at and say, you know, I'd love to live there. In like a big warehouse full of graffiti. Yeah. I think I did when I was a kid. I was a bit disappointed that I didn't get to decorate my room that way.
Okay, so now usually at this point I say usually, we've already done this once before, but usually we would then talk about
many times.
We'd talk about how we would make a Double Dragon, or how would we make this adaptation. But personally, I think the film is fine. I don't think I would touch it, because I'd be like, no, this is a fine thing, a moment of history captured in a film,
Oh, sure.
I would say that's fine.
I would have watched a sequel, I guess. I suppose that's what I would say.
That's true.
If they'd made a sequel, I think, they could have, if they could have maintained the same level of kind of humour and stuff, they could have done something. I think I looked at the games, and the second game, Marion gets shot apparently and killed, and then you have to avenge her. So it's a bit like kind of, they were like, let's get the woman out of the way even quicker. And then in the third game, apparently they have to go and get the Rosetta Stones from around the world, which seems to me like they probably haven't actually looked up what the Rosetta Stone was. Right. And they're like, it's some kind of mystical artifact and not just like a list of, like shopping rules.
Right. Oh yeah, and I meant to mention in the video game adaptation section that the medallions aren't in the game as far as I'm aware. You just chase the girl and that's it. But I would say, what would you think if they had to make the film now? Let's just say not us, but another movie company would make a Double Dragon film.
Oh sure.
What do you think they'll do to it?
Well, obviously, I think they'd probably try and make it a bit grittier. I can see that happening. There's been a lot of development in the way of martial arts, the way martial arts are presented in films, in that they're fed much more into the mainstream now. And you almost can't be a superhero character without knowing martial arts. So I think that element of it would be probably portrayed differently. It's difficult for me to say, really. I suppose I think that they might try and make the mystical or chosen one elements a bit more prominent and a bit sort of less hokey. And maybe they would have actual super strength, and it would. It's difficult to say. Really.
I don't know if they'd necessarily play up to the spiritual, magical elements so much. I'd say they'd probably stick to the gangs and they'll stick to the dystopian thing. Oh, sure. But they'll probably focus it, probably something to do with the girl being kidnapped or something like that. I think it'll be less of the spiritual, more of the they have to travel from A to B, and there are set pieces along the way, sort of things they have to accomplish along the way. And the thing I liked about the film was like its Jackie Chan elements, where it was lots of stunts and stuff like that, and you could tell that the actors were doing it for the most part. You could tell that it was actually a physical thing, and because it looked real, it was more fun.
Yep.
Whereas it will probably be now, maybe this is to stop kids imitating fighting in films, but it will be a lot more over the top. It'll be a lot more unbelievable, or a lot more extreme, that kids couldn't emulate it.
Oh sure.
And so they'll probably be doing like sort of multiple jumping roundhouse kicks and stuff like that. And
that's right.
Whereas a kid would be lucky to get one. So I just feel like it's probably not something they could do now, unless they just make it silly and ironic like Double Dragon Neon was.
Yeah, they could get Seth Rogen and Jack Black.
Yeah, they just have to make it like a very self-aware 80s, whoa, goofy man, radical,
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing,
It depends. I mean, I suppose it depends who's making it, really. I'm trying to think if there has been a successful attempt to make a film like this, like in this sort of 90s kind of.
They usually have to put some kind of very personal, very human spin on it.
Oh sure.
To kind of keep the film a bit grounded, because I think audiences probably have slightly less of that suspension of disbelief, and there needs to be a slight reality to these characters. There needs to be like an origin story that sounds conceivable, or a motivation that seems logical. Asking people to do too much of a stretch, like, they have magic medallions now and it just does this, and expect audiences to kind of go along with that, might be a bit too much to ask.
On the other hand, I'd say that this film definitely falls more in, this is basically a superhero film, really, in a way. And superhero films now are so kind of saturated in a way that I feel like people could, make that acceptance. But would they make a film of it nowadays? That's the thing. The Double Dragon name, as you said, is not as big as it once was.
Maybe it's not a film that'll be made now, but it might be made in the not too distant future. Yes. I feel like trends are history repeats itself. Mm-hmm. Trends come back. So maybe the martial arts genre will make a return someday. So whilst we're sort of very big into superheroes, that, as you say, that naturally leads into them having fighting skills, so that may naturally lead into more films about fighting, martial arts, with elements of comedy in it, because the Marvel films have shown that when you're very self-aware and ironic, that does really well. They just turn out a more fun film than say Batman vs Superman. You might have more luck with a film adaptation then, where when the kung fu, when the martial arts movie genre makes its return, maybe that be a time for Double Dragon to make its return.
Yes.
I'd say it'd have to keep on to its kind of 80s, 90s elements.
Yeah,
Otherwise it wouldn't be Double Dragon.
Yeah.
But who's to say? Maybe even the video game franchise itself will do a massive reboot and come back and be all modern day and gritty and stuff. But who's to say? Who
is to say, indeed. There is Marvel is bringing out this Iron Fist TV show. So
that's right.
That might bring back people's interest in the martial arts.
Yeah, that involves magic and martial arts and Doctor Strange as well. So who knows? Maybe the mystic and the cosmic will have a place on our cinema screens again in full force.
Who knows?
Well, I guess we'll get to our rating system here.
Yes. I forget what the rating system was. I think we need to fight each other now to decide who gets to rate the film. So.
Ow! Oh, me nip! So what we do is we rank it out of 5, but out of 5 what? And the whats are something from the film.
Yes.
So for me, I'm just going to go ahead and give this 4 medallions out of 5. I had so much fun with this movie. It's one that I would watch again. I would just recommend this. It's just a fun film. I mean, don't go into this film looking for any kind of depth or cleverness.
Yes.
Like it's not a smart film. It's just a fun film, and for that, it's just. I think that's completely fine. There's always room There's always room on a cinema screen for a film that's just fun.
No, exactly. I agree. I would give it 4 out of 5 plates of, was it broccoli or spinach?
Spinach.
Feeding a Bobo to hilarious effect. Like you said, exactly. It was genuine fun. There's sequences, and I would go back and watch it again because I think that there would still be more to see and, fun to have. So I agree. I'm really surprised by this.
Yeah.
It's the best film we've seen so far out of all 2 films that we've
seen.
Of them.
Like we said before, I'm genuinely interested to see any hidden gems amongst the video game adaptation genre, and I think we found one.
It didn't take us long to find one, did it, really?
Well, alright then. With that, we will sign off, and so thank you guys for tuning in. Tune in for the next podcast, whenever that may be. We'll try and make it sooner than 4 months, but
yes.
we will see. And Joel, what is the next film we're going to look at?
Street Fighter.
Now,
Street Fighter.
That one I have seen in the cinema when it came out, and I do remember being bad. So let's see if time has maybe been kinder to it.
No.
With that, folks, good night.
Bye bye.
Come here, you.